It's their 69th homecoming at Airview. 69th. And for a good many of those years, you were there.
Yeah.
In October. Do you remember your first, I guess, what would be your trial sermon?
Yes. Do it. Do it. Miss Golan was my amen, and she got to saying, I do. I do. We was doing picture day that day, and I ran up on the pulpit and ran off the pulpit and turned my ankle.
Now, did you break it, sprain it?
I preached, but I broke it after I ate dinner.
You ate first, and then you went to the hospital, and I remember pretty much when that happened. And were you in a cast for a while after that?
About 6 weeks.
6 weeks on that. Well, who was your music? Was it Brother Carl?
Carl Bryant.
Okay.
Carl had been called about 2 or 3 weeks before I got there, I think.
Oh, okay.
He'd been called back. He'd been there once.
Right. And you were there from 82 till 95?
95.
14 years? Looking back at it, and of all the things, people come, there's people that are still there, that were there when you were there. There are people who have came and they have since moved on. But
one of the saddest moments you asked me about a while ago, I think when Joe and Pam lost their baby, they sent for me to come to Birmingham. They waited on me before they took the machine off of it. And that was a tribute to me. I mean, it was just more than I could stand right then. I remember that, and a lot of others that was close to us passed away.
we had M nights.
Oh yeah. That was my favorite.
Banners. We had a wall lined up of banners year after year.
10 years we got.
You remember that? 10 years that we had M night.
Yeah.
We have more people a lot of times than the bigger churches.
Yeah.
I mean,
most of the time.
Most of the time. And I remember those. Do you remember what you did? And it was at Airview. I think Airview was hosting that night. When you used the Jenkins triplets, and 2 of the Jenkins boys was already in the box.
Okay, yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
And
one out.
Yep. And then you ended up like multiplying them.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Well, I was trying to get the fact over that we can bring people in.
Yeah.
Other people would work.
Because the time that you were there, we had people come into the church. I was told, I'm not exactly sure, but like there was a lot that came in while you were there, during your all 14 years that you were there. And also, we were talking about baptisms. Any idea? And you posted on Facebook just the other day. You wanted to know if there's anyone's out there on Facebook that you have baptized. And you saw some of the responses,
Right.
but you don't know exactly how many were responding for whatever reason. Well, Teresa Yates, which is now acting secretary of the church, she went back today and pulled some information of the people that you baptized. And in a total, that Ed Bryant joined in November 1982, was baptized January 23rd, 1983.
He was my first baptism.
You're absolutely correct. But 227 are what we have listed there about.
Yeah.
Maybe more, but right around 200 and over 200, just say.
Yeah, I would have said 250, but
well, that's pretty close.
My Bibles that I kept it in is.
So you kept records of the ones you baptized?
I look back, and I don't know where they are.
So you did record it. Was that every church you were at that you recorded?
Yeah, I've baptized right at 800.
In your ministry at everywhere?
Right. And also, went to Central.
Yep.
And they called me, and I've been there 12 years.
So you were at Central for almost as long as you were at Airview.
Right.
Is Airview your longest church that you had pastored at?
Airview was my longest.
Was it? And I remember Sam Allen before you, I believe, he was a couple before you had gotten there. And when I was a kid, he was there. And so he was the pastor for about, I think, 12. But I think you were the longest standing pastor at Airview.
To my knowledge, I was.
And it growed the most. I mean, it was just really, that from that time when you came, from, you know, the time that you left. And I also remember you loved gospel singings.
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
sure you still do.
Yeah.
But you loved, you believed in getting groups there. And remember those New Year's Eve singings we used to have?
Yes, sir. Big names would, but the home group backed us up.
Right.
And there was several of the home groups.
I remember the Seekers and the Sounds of the Trumpet with
Sound of
Lenore
the
Sweetless.
Trumpet.
Those, I think, were the best and biggest New Year's Eve singings that we had.
We had turned people away on some of them.
That they were so big, you just didn't have room.
Didn't have room.
I remember putting chairs out.
Yep.
I remember not only were there chairs out, but there was also the choir member or the church members, as many as church members would sit in the choir loft.
Right.
So we would have room out in the auditorium for the visitor people.
And the quartets would turn around and sing to y'all.
Yeah, I remember those. Those were the big times when the church was really growing, and it was just everybody was it was a big family.
Yeah.
And to this day, everybody who was associated in that time is still linked
In the church.
in the church.
Yeah. But they was great people. Now, they worked. Now, I was a pastor, and you know pastors get the glory, but the people get the credit. And it can do it again.
It can. And Brother Gary, who has just come on, his, what you would say, new slogan for the church is, "Don't you think it's time to come home?"
Amen.
And so that, going on that, is a great slogan for all those who may not be in church now, but once was, that we need to be ready, and the church needs to start getting ready. And so I think that Airview is making that call now. Don't you think it's time to come home to get right before, God calls his church home?
You know, Brother Gary had a lot of ideas. He'd keep something going.
Thinking back from 82 to 95, in those 14, do you remember the day going back to touching on a little sadness, the last day that you were there, in 1995?
Yeah.
Do you remember that day?
Yep. Sad day for us.
Yep. It was a sad day for us all. I remember it was a sad day for us all. But, you are one of the pastors, and probably one of the most remembered and loved pastors of Airview over all those years. But
Well, I'm grateful.
the church, the members of the church still love you. We still think about you. But you told me a while ago that she takes good care of you.
Great care. I'd be in a nursing home if it wasn't for her.
That's probably true. And I know you don't want that, and she don't want that. She'll keep you as long as she can.
Right.
She is. Now, Juanita and Tony, now how are they doing?
They're doing great.
I haven't seen either of them in a while.
Juanita and Tony is very active. They love God, and they love Airview.
Yeah,
They really do.
it is.
That's where Tony and Juanita met.
At Airview?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right.
That's where Tony and Juanita met.
At Airview?
Yeah.
Right.
Easter morning, Easter
I remember those.
sunrise services. We had those big.
And we have some pictures in our video slide of the big tractor trailer that we
Right.
put down on the field.
Yeah.
And then we had everything. We had all the chairs out, and we had as many at the sunrise service, a lot of Easter mornings, that almost that you would have in church.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do remember some cold Easter mornings too.
Yeah.
And I remember you used to have to wipe them chairs out where they'd be wet. But is there anything that you want to just looking back, that you want to remind the people, either rather they were there when you were there, or rather they're new to Airview. But what would be, if you had to give some lasting, I guess you would say, words of advice? What would you say now to the church as we look forward in having a new pastor, getting a new direction for the church from this 69th homecoming forward?
Well, I would just say that pull together, follow your pastor, and just love each other, and don't be afraid to invite people to church. I like what your pastor's doing. He's preaching uplifting messages, and that's what we need. We don't need to be down. And I would say look up, look out, and watch. Well, he's coming. We better be ready. We better come home.